Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Badava Girivardhari Gopijana Gopijana Badava Girivardhari Gopijana Badava Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Jadi Jamuna Tiravana Jadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hari Vajagacharya Astatara Satsasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudhirayat. We're reading this morning from Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 7, 127. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janiyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janiyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam Vasudeve unto Krishna Bhagavati unto the personality of Godhead Bhakti Yoga contact of devotional service Prayojitaha being applied Janayati Janayati does produce Ashu very soon Vairagyam detachment Jnanam knowledge Cha and Yat that which Ahai to come causeless. Translation: by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately, or Ashu, very soon, immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to be something like material emotional affairs may argue that in the revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic powers, and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended, which is true. According to them, bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, is meant for those who cannot perform the high-grade activities. That's not true. Generally, it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for Shudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent women class. Not true. But that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is very easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti to achieve the contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Is a great science, and it is open for all living beings, including the Shudras, Vaishyas, women, and even those lower than the low-born Shudras. So what to speak of the high-class men, like the qualified Brahmanas and the great self-realized kings? The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity, etc., are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti cult. Paragraph. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything, material and spiritual. And the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with a poor fund of knowledge think. Nishkarma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad results. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things, and he becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the bhakti cult, being the supermost occupation of the living being, leads him out of material sense enjoyment. That is the sign of a pure devotee. He is not a fool, nor is he engaged in the inferior energies, nor does he have material values. This is not possible by dry reasoning. It actually happens by the grace of the Almighty. In conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, etc. But one who has only knowledge or detachment is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of the bhakti cult. Bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being. End of purport. Verse again. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janiyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayadahaitukam. Prabhupada liked this word ashu and would repeat it just like in the middle of a whole explanation of bhakti. It's very quickly. Very soon. Very soon is relative. Relative compared to extended, who can say, decades at least, if not lifetimes, of these other, what he sometimes would call high-grade activities. That in this purport he's saying they're corollary factors. That is, what's a corollary factor? You know, one of the ways of describing what a corollary factor is it helps. It's not an essence, it's a help. Supposing one doesn't have the help, then the essence isn't checked. Supposing one has the help, the essence is enhanced. The ashu, or very quickly is enhanced. But the essence is not the enhancer. The essence is the essence. Now, just going back a bit, the context. The context is chapter 2. The chapter 1, the assembly of the sages, making 6 inquiries from Sutta, who just has completed hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Shukadev to Maharaj Parikshit. He was in the audience. The sages gathered at Naimisharanya, asking him, rather than saying, what did he say? They were specific. They asked 6 questions. That was chapter 1, 6 questions. In chapter 2, is the beginning of the answer to those 6 questions. The first of the 6 questions was, could you, Sutta, son of Romaharshan Sutta, could you describe to us the essence of the entirety of all the Vedas, please? Thank you very much. And that's how the previous verse begins. I mean, exactly, Prabhupada says this previous verse, number 6, is Sutta's response to question number 1, or it's the beginning of his response to question number 1. And the beginning of that response is the paradharma, supreme occupation of the living entity, is devotional service. It's not different from, it's similar to the concluding verse of chapter 6 Bhagavad Gita. Of all the systems of yoga, sarvadharmam pratyaja mamekam sharanam braja. So that's chapter 18. The essence of the end of 6 is, of all the systems of yoga, one is the topmost system of yoga, similar. What's the topmost system of yoga? Bhakti. And bhakti is made up of 2 things. Mind, always absorbed in Krishna, and the senses engaged in activities of Krishna, what the mind does and what the body does, in relation to Krishna, exclusively, topmost. So that's similar to the first answer to the essence of the range of all the Vedas. And all the Vedas is vast, like make your head spin, so vast. But the essence is the supreme occupation of the living entity. Then comes, what's that? So, or what does occupation of living entity mean anyways? That's just Prabhupada's favorite definition of dharma, is the occupation of a living entity, regardless of the covering. What do living entities do? Engage in service. And para dharma is service to the Supreme. And that's the essence. And then from that essence comes the next verse, number 7. This devotional service unto Vasudeva, very specific. Vasudeva can have different meanings, but in context it means the son of Vasudeva, or Krishna. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha. So that paradharma described in, or pointed to in text 6, is now a little more definition. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha. How is it to be done? So in verse number 6, very important, verse number 6, Yayatma Suprasidati. And that yayatma supersediti means not, it's suprasana, very satisfied. Satisfied and suprasana. Atma, at the soul level. It's a symptom of one who has properly engaged himself in devotional service, this paradharma. They're satisfied. And satisfied indicates there's no society nakangsati. No more hankering, lamenting. Material business finished. Zip. No more. If you don't do that, then what do you do? Then that you do devotional service. Where exclusively, so there's mixed devotional service, but there's exclusive devotional service. Then exclusive devotional service is where there's nothing else but. And that means nothing else but, A, the Atma is fully satisfied, completely satisfied. And with that, two things. That's this verse. Knowledge and detachment. Very soon, ashu. Very soon, or quickly. Or here in the word for in the translation, it's immediately. So it's not automatic immediately. Press the button and the light comes on. It's not that kind of automatically, but it's ashu, very quickly. In comparison to other things that are of value, take things that are of material value. Take a diamond, very valuable. How long does it take to make a diamond? Long time. A long time. Pressure, and then you eventually may not, but you also may, a diamond comes. By nature's own arrangement. May come. But this is not a may, this is, it's not the material cause and effect, it's a spiritual outcome. That is to say, this tendency for service is within every living entity. The tendency for the service in its uncontaminated state is service to the Supreme. Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. That's in it. So the awakening of that purified state of service has a natural byproduct. What's that? Jnana and Vairagya. Now, these two, Jnana and Vairagya, are mentioned in a zillion places. Different language is used to say what knowledge is. Different terms indicating what knowledge is. But, it's, starting with the nature of the self, it's to know who you are. And then one who knows who they are, there's detachment. There's other characteristics. There's tolerance, and there's simplicity, and there's humility, there's other symptoms, but there's symptoms of something. And the symptoms of something is being situated in knowledge of who I am, and knowing who I am, there's detachment from who I'm not. And that's pretty unusual, because the material world is a place where people are covered by Maya. We had this nice discussion in a home program in College Station. Why Maya? And the answer is we wanted, but Maya means suffering. We didn't want the suffering. No, we didn't want the suffering. We wanted the illusion to think I can get happiness without Krishna. And then comes, what was the prompt for that one? You know, the fall of the jiva question. And it's to the mind, it's not satisfying to say, we made a choice that's not within time. We exercise free will, but not once upon a time, we're in the spiritual world and everything is nice. We looked at our watch and we thought, you know what? I want to enjoy separately. And then, poof, we disappeared from the spiritual world, we came to the material world, we started struggling with Maya. As if it's an event in time. Because that's how we understand events. We don't understand events that are not within time. Are there such things? Yes. This is one of those such things. Anyway, round and around and around on that topic. But there's a free will exercise that's not within time. And here we are, struggling with Maya. So, now that we're here, however we got here, Prabhupada's phrase is somehow or other. That's pretty clever. Somehow or other. Misuse of free will. Somehow or other. What's the reason for misuse of free will? No good reason. No good reason at all. You won't find one. There's no good reason. Misuse of free will is dumb. Well, how do you get dumbness in the stage of perfection? If we're, in essence, anyway, it's the fall of the jiva, round and around thing. Here we are. Besides, how do we get here? The drowning man might ask, wait a minute, you're sending me a lifesaver, take the rope, but how did I get here? Come on, man, grab the rope. Get out. Anyway, so that's the fall of the jiva topic. But so now here we are. And what's and dharma is the constitutional nature of the soul, what souls do. They serve. This or that or the other, but souls serve. Constitutionally, souls serve. And in the healthy state, souls serve the Supreme. That's paradharma. There's dharma, there's paradharma. Everyone's serving, without exception, living entities, in any species, not just human species, serving their senses, or some other master, or a combination of masters, but serving constitutionally. And then to get out of that serving miscellaneous to serving the Supreme. And then exclusively focusing on serving the Supreme. And then the serving the Supreme focus results in what this verse is saying. Causelessly. Causelessly. Causelessly means there's no material cause. You know, it's the healthy state of the soul. And when the healthy state of the soul is manifest, the unhealthy is gone. Very simple in principle. So how do you get there? Because that was the previous verse. And then this verse too, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. That's the horse that pulls the cart. And then the cart has this knowledge and detachment as the companion of Bhakti Yoga. And from the previous verse, Atma Suprasana, fully satisfied. I don't want anything. What about this? No. What about that? No. One of the questions, there was a nice question by a first-time visitor, a Chinese student at Texas A&M, who a friend invited him, and he came, and he was hearing all these, he never heard them before things. So he, wanted to know, how do you know? And an answer I gave is, how do you know when you've eaten enough? You feel full. You have the experience of feeling full. So you don't have to take, permission from somebody or someone to tell you, pardon me, but you've eaten enough. You can tell them, I've eaten enough. I'm feeling full. And that is, I'm not hankering for something. That sense of fullness. That's what this verse is saying. And the previous verse. And the paradharma principle. The hankering and lamenting of the mind, because that's where the hankering and lamenting reposes itself, in the mind. It arises from the more subtle false ego, because we don't need any of those things. It's not just, it's an illusory hankering. These verses, I'm going to end. These verses in chapter 2 are foundational, which means what you find in chapter 2 gets explained more elaborately and more elaborately and more elaborately in subsequent verses of the Bhagavatam. But if you understand these verses, you've understood the Bhagavatam. At least, the principles behind the Bhagavatam. And then there's other ways of looking at the principle. I'll give a little example. I like this example. Canto 9, Srimad Bhagavatam, comes before Canto 10. And Canto 10, Krishna appears and does his activities, his transcendental activities. So to prepare the reader, Vyasadeva wrote Canto 9 before Canto 10. Now, in chronology, the first half, or more than half, of Canto 9 is the Surya dynasty kings. And the second half is the Chandra dynasty kings. And Krishna appeared in the Chandra dynasty. So it's like a chronology of kings. Vasudeva being one. And, then the royal family. Ugrasena, etc., etc., etc. So the chronology is there, but it's also a very important principle. In order to qualify the reader of Canto 10, Vyasadeva is weaving into, there are contaminations of heart that one may become very proficient at some, this, that, or the other, yoga practice or austerity or sacrifice or something, and not have a pure heart. And not having a pure heart, they get in some mess. This and that and the other. So a philosophical or a tattva understanding is, what is that life like that's with contamination, and how to overcome that contamination, so you can read Canto 10 properly. The shortcomings of these corollary activities, and they don't touch perfection. It's not the essence of Dharma. They may be helpful, but supposing you don't have that helpful, the qualification will come anyways through bhakti. The qualification will come anyways So the corollary is included in bhakti. No harm paying attention. Let's say, paying attention to cleanliness is part of bhakti. Serving Krishna with being clean and other, mode of goodness principles. Fine, fantastic. But it's not the essence. One may be fastidiously clean, or one may be, a mystic yogi, or one may be this or that or the other thing. It doesn't lead to perfection. It can lead to attachment to this or that or the other thing. And that attachment to this or that or the other thing in the material field is the cause of fall down. And even one may go really high in this or that or the other thing. And there's lots of examples in the 9th canto. Very elevated persons fell because of something that's less than perfect. So what about us? We're engaged in a process that can bring us to perfection, but supposing we get stuck along the road. That happens, right? It's one of those things. I've been chanting and reading and worshiping and following bhakti for X number of years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, and I'm not there yet. The bell didn't ring. I didn't reach the goal. I'm stuck down here. My chanting has not really brought me to what I know it can, in that which I have faith in, but I'm stuck. I'm treading water. I'm not going backwards, but I'm not going forwards either. Isn't that something that devotees that have been around for a while could easily say, honestly say? So what makes the difference between getting stuck and not getting stuck? These two things, it's very similar to the topic yesterday about, is Krishna partial? It's effort and mercy. There's effort, sincere effort, but sincere effort alone is not sufficient. Mercy. And what about Krishna showing his mercy? He's ready. Are we ready? What's our eagerness for Krishna's mercy? And there's a whole big section of teachings that go along with doing, but not having the eagerness for mercy. Because bhakti is not mechanical. So many rounds, so many years, and something, and the bell's supposed to ring. Right? That, it's ashu, very quickly. How come it's not happening? I get the idea. That's just elaborating on the idea that, quickly requires eagerness for mercy along with its very sincere effort towards what? Towards the Atma supersedity. That it's not about me being satisfied, it's Krishna being satisfied. Anyway, so that's bhakti. That's the bhakti principle. So here, I'm going to end. Here in chapter 2, foundational teachings are presented because that was the question. And it's important to understand foundational before you go into, the detailed application of foundational. It's a nice place to begin, chapter 2, canto 1. Let's see if there's some discussion. 10 after 8.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, it said the rendering devotional service is the cause for acquiring the knowledge. So how is it become causeless, Maharaj? Please explain.
But causeless means material. So a material, there's nothing material that can cause transcendental knowledge. Rather, transcendental knowledge is intrinsic to the soul and it's covered. So when the process of purification or removing the covering occurs, that causelessly, without material cause, the knowledge that's there becomes awakened. Here's another way of saying the same thing. This is, I like. The first public Harinam, as far as my understanding goes, was in Tompkins Square Park. You know, Prabhupada was having, in the 26 Second Avenue storefront, kirtan, lecture, kirtan, prasadam, 3 nights of the week, etc. And the attendance started to grow, became very popular. And Brahmananda said, Prabhupada, at one point, this is so nice. Can we take this into the public? Prabhupada's answer, I was just waiting for you to ask. Yes, but we have to get a permit because we don't want to have a problem with the police. So they got a permit for an event in Tompkins Square Park. So the devotees went from the storefront to along 8th Street to Tompkins Square Park and sat under a tree and had kirtan for 3 hours. And at the end of 3 hours, there were a lot of people gathered around like, what's this? And what planet is this man from? We've never seen anything like this, etc. So, and at the end of the 3 hours, Prabhupada, in his aristocratic way, stood up, palms folded in front of his body, and spoke. And what he spoke was very profound. It's this same topic. I've not come to teach you something new. I've come to remind you of that which you have forgotten. That's causeless. We know, but we forgot. Amnesia. Yeah, covered by ignorance. And so ignorance is covering our real knowledge. I've come to remind you of the real knowledge that's already within you. That's causeless. So it's a spiritual cause. That's the association of one who's carrying the message. And the message revives remembrance. It clears 2 things. It clears and it awakens. And that's causeless. Because causeless in the sense, it's no material event that can bring it about. There's no material event that can check it. It's not caused by something material, but it's awakened by something spiritual. Thus causeless. There's no material cause.
Guru Maharaj, how do you reconcile this verse with Bhagavad Gita verse where Krishna says, knowledge leads to bhakti, bahunam janmanamante?
That has to do with the progressive path. It doesn't negate what this verse is saying. In other words, the yoga ladder, supposing somebody doesn't have knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, they're a new person, or whatever, they're a covered person, but they engage in they're engaged in the bhakti process of one kind or another, and they're not a learned person. That knowledge awakens causelessly. So what the other is the gradual, the yoga ladder process That's the corollary, the enhancement of cultivation of knowledge by study. Then one may, bahunam janmanamante, one may or may not come to the position of devotional service. It's not a material cause. It's a yoga ladder step. And through that yoga ladder step, if one takes that up seriously and properly, then one can get a glimpse of what's beyond matter. One can get some transcendental realization. It's right within this purport. Yeah. Here's the sentence. Those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to be something like material emotional affairs may argue that in the revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic power, and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended. So there's some transcendental realization, but it's not complete. There's some, spirit beyond matter. One can have some transcendental realization of that. But it's not complete. And then keep going. So what awakens bhakti is not the transcendental knowledge, it's bhakti, awakens bhakti. So the person that gets to transcendental knowledge needs association of bhakti or a bhakta to go further. Okay? Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for that wonderful. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. My question is, you said the sense of fullness. Is it self-satisfaction or different?
I don't understand your question. You want to know what this superseded he, what is it?
Sense of fullness, you said, when you are somebody
Oh.
else. Yeah.
But yeah, it's on the platform of the soul. And the platform of the soul in relation to the Supreme Soul, because one can't, just like this prior question, one can have realization of the soul without understanding the super soul. One can have an understanding of Aham Brahmasmi without understanding Parabrahman or Bhagavan. So it's beginning. So your question is this on the platform of the soul? Yes. And keep going. Because the real happiness on the platform of the soul is happiness of the Supreme through love of the Supreme. And that's the fullness of the happiness of the soul. Otherwise, it's not full. It's transcendental. It may be transcendental, but not full. Does that answer your question? Okay. How about on the ladies' side? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So the renunciation in Gnanis and renunciation in devotees, what would be the major difference?
What's the difference between the renunciation of the Gyanis and the Bhaktas?
Bhaktas.
That's your question?
Yes.
My answer is it depends, because there are different kinds of Gyanis. But in a general directional sense, it's negation of that which is seen as not having connection with the Supreme or material. But such a renouncer is unable to see the connection of all things with the Supreme. So not this way they see matter spirit and negation of matter. And the renunciation, the negation of the affinity for matter, without the proper understanding of the affinity for the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme. Rupa Goswami defines this as Palgu Vairagya. Anasakta Vishayan, you know the verse, Yatarham Upayunjitaha. So that's the Jnani, it's a renunciation. Negation of things that are in relation to Krishna, but they don't see it in relation to Krishna. They just give it up and become sparse, or a renouncer, a tyagi, without understanding those things that they gave up. They have their relation with the Supreme. They are meant to be, their existence is to be engaged in service of the Supreme. It's okay.
One more follow-up question. So, jnanis, they tend to put lot of effort both in knowledge and renunciation.
Yes.
When we are in bhakti path, should we focus on knowledge and...
It's a corollary. The focus, per se, the focus is the satisfaction of Krishna. That's the definition of bhakti. Anukulyena Krishna Anushinanam. That's bhakti. And then the previous is negation. Jnana and karma, negation. Not having affinity for either, but having affinity for pleasing Krishna. So back to your question. We don't focus on doing without, we focus on do. The positive, and the positive takes care of the reduction of the affinity for the apparently not positive.
We focus on the Anukulena Krishna
Yes.
more than Jnana Karma
Yes,
Anapritam.
the definition, you're asking the same question, and I'll give the same answer just in different language. Bhakti is Krishna should be pleased. A subset of Krishna should be pleased is Jnana and Karma are not for the pleasure of Krishna, and so they take a back seat. The practitioner of bhakti, don't place very high value in cultivation of knowledge. So if I read Bhagavad Gita and I read Srimad Bhagavatam and I know this and that and the other thing, but the this and that and the other thing is that which nourishes bhakti. I accept it because it nourishes bhakti, not because I get some 5 gold stars after my name, because I learned a bunch of stuff. And because I learned a bunch of stuff, I'm more detached than the fellow next to me, because I know lots of stuff. And that person next to me, he doesn't know all the stuff, so he has affinity for stuff. So the idea is to leave aside that cultivation of knowledge and detachment that doesn't lead to bhakti, but if that which leads to bhakti, that's what I want. Just like, we're sitting in a nice house. Most of the families here, they have a nice house. And that's not a no-no. It's not a yes either. That which is meant for Krishna's service, that's important. And in principle, the practitioner of bhakti want that Krishna should be pleased. That's all. And let me streamline or simplify or not accept unnecessary things because if they're in fact unnecessary. If something's necessary or it can be used positively in Krishna's service, okay. And otherwise, now that's householder life, and I don't have a house. I don't have a car. Is it a necessity? It's not, for me, it's not a necessity. I travel. I spend money on airfares. Is it necessary? To get from point A to point B, it's necessary. So I accept it because it's favorable for pleasing Krishna. So ashram specific, the application of a principle may vary, but the principle is a principle. So I don't place much value in the cultivation of knowledge for knowledge's sake or cultivation of renunciation for renunciation's sake. It's just a byproduct of bhakti. Okay? Anything else on the ladies' side?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. Maharaj, you said effort is not enough. We need mercy of Krishna. How do we get that?
You didn't get that?
How do we get the mercy?
How do you get the mercy? Radha Damodar or Yasoda Damodar. You see Mother Yasoda endeavoring. Krishna wanted, when Krishna saw not only her endeavor, but she was perspiring and flowers were falling from her hair, and she was feeling distressed because, as a mother, she felt this is important. I can't let my son grow up being a thief. That's not good. It's not the motherly instinct. Nurture my son becoming a thief. So I have to do so. So that's the endeavor part. So making a sincere endeavor and expecting that Krishna will be kind. And be more than just expecting, encouraging Krishna's kindness, invoking Krishna's kindness. Not minus the service. Krishna, clean up my mess, please. But along with the service mood, Krishna will help. And I'm depending upon. When Krishna sees that's the genuine mood, it's like the classic is Srila Prabhupada coming to the West with nothing in his pocket. Nothing. As Prabhupada said, like a vagabond. And that's not how he grew up. He's not accustomed to being a vagabond. He's a pure devotee. But, so there was this dependence on Krishna's mercy. All the way, every step, with nothing. And hardship and this and that and the other. Krishna wasn't spanking him or punishing him for taking unnecessary risk. He was supporting him. Anyway, that's a classic example. Okay. Last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. It was a wonderful class. Maharaj, how do we identify when we're reading, we're not reading for the sake of knowledge and we're actually reading for bhakti?
Generally speaking, the answer to that question is there's a mix. I call it the two-pocket program. So much for Krishna, so much for me, so much for Krishna, so much for me, me, Krishna, Krishna. That's our, generally speaking, we're mixed. So how do you understand? Back to this. There's no more hankering. There's no more lamenting. One is feeling fully satisfied. Feeling fully satisfied while, so it's devotion. It's for Krishna. And how do you know it's for Krishna? Because you're fully, the hankering, lamenting, the affinity for matter has subsided. It's like eventually gone. That's it. That's a symptom. That's the lakshana. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. See all living entities. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. Not just the ones that pat me on the back, but, including the ones that stab me in the back. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. Now, the behavior, Prabhupada would sometimes speak about how there was opposition. One of the ones that I recently heard was his description of, from the Samarthas in India, they criticized him for bringing Western people to bhakti. Because we have a club called the Sadhu Club or the Brahmana Club or the Elevated Persons Club. And those people, and you're bringing those people into this very, elevated, confidential activity. And then they would point to their less than perfect behaviors and characteristics and qualities and say, just see these fallen people. So they would criticize Prabhupada. And he knew it. But he had his reason for doing what he was doing because Scripture says anyone's eligible. And the purification, it was then his duty to see to the purification. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki